up? Hey, hello, everyone. Today we are back with our podcast. We are doing episode 5 of Survivor Season 32, Brains, Brawn, Beauty. This episode is The Devils We Know. Crazy. And we're filming this on a Saturday instead of our usual Friday time. So my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa. And we really liked this episode, but it also was not what we predicted it was going to be, which makes us a little bit sad because we would have loved to see the Outcast twist, even though it wasn't that popular whenever it was done.
Yeah, this was sort of a meh episode. I mean, it was sort of interesting, but it was meh.
I feel like it's one of those episodes that's necessary to set up the plot arcs of the rest of the season, but it's still kind of annoying to have to watch it, especially after everything that happened the last episode with all the people dying. So
Yeah, basically Anna got screwed over by the tribe swap this episode. So we can start at the beginning with the Brain tribe dynamic. So before we saw the merge or the tribe swap, before we saw that, we saw after tribal and stuff for the Brain. Well, you know, at nighttime, whatever, for the Brain the next day before the tribe swap. So yeah. We can start with Dr. Peter. Peter is going around and helping everyone, you know, doing some charity work on the Brains tribe by by fixing everyone up and being a doctor.
Just another thing, because people still don't seem to be understanding this point fully. Peter is not allowed to help when medical from the show gets involved, but he's allowed to help, if they're at camp and the problem is bothersome but not serious enough to warrant a call to medical. So, when someone got a jellyfish stinger stuck in them, they were allowed to, the lifeguard was allowed to tell them what to do. And so, just a little clarification, because people still seem to be a little bit bitter about how Peter didn't help when there was that crazy medical crisis last week.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, obviously for liability reasons, he can't be helping when the legit medical team is there. But, you know, now he's giving all of those really annoying, mostly confessionals, saying how he's sort of being really cocky still, saying how, you know, I just need a merge or a tribe swap or whatever, so then I can go back and take out all of these people, and then I'm still running the show secretly, you know.
Yeah, I think that Peter made himself useful, but I think he would have been even more well liked if he had actually done something that was humble instead of oh, I'm the great, super amazing ER doctor. I will help you do everything. So,
Yeah, if helping his tribe mates was out of the goodness of his heart instead of I'm just helping you so you feel like I'm needed on the tribe, or I'm just helping you so you owe me later or something, then, you know, it sort of defeats the purpose.
yeah. I thought that when Neal was talking about how they couldn't have Peter find the idol, I thought that they were just going to keep on making up fake injuries for him to take care of so that he wouldn't think about going to find the idol because he was being needed or whatever. But that's not what he was doing. He just went out and looked for the idol himself so Peter couldn't find it.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was so crazy. We were talking why did it take so long for the Brain tribe to find the idol? Because we saw the second episode, Ty gets the idol, you know, and then right afterwards, then Jason and Scot get the idol, and then obviously the Brain tribe has been looking for the idol. Like Liz was saying in exit interviews and stuff that everyone was looking for it, but nobody could find it. So it seems interesting that it takes the Brain tribe so much longer to find this idol, and then Neal gets off and gets away with it so perfectly. He's not even caught or anything. With Beauty saw Ty looking for on the first day. On Brawn, everyone was trying to get it at the same time.
Yeah, so I think it was kind of disappointing because part of the drama of the hidden immunity idol is it becomes a lot less powerful when people know you have it, because then they know that you have it, and they like try actively to blindside you so that you don't play it.
Yeah, so now we've got all 3 idols in action. Neal has one, Jason has one, and Ty has one. So only males have the idol right now.
And what also makes it interesting is that since there are 3 idols in play, there are also a lot of different alliances that can be made that would result in a super idol, because obviously anyone who has an idol can pair with another person with an idol and make their super idol. So right now I think 2 idols are on the blue tribe, yes, Chandler.
Yes, 2 are Scot or Neal and Jason have them on that tribe.
Yeah, so obviously the tribes swapped, and
Yeah, we were like, oh, tribe swap will be in 2 weeks because this week is 13, so it's an odd number. But then when Jeff said, yeah, because of Caleb's evacuation, we're doing it at 13 because it would have been 14. I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. I was like, yes.
plus, like, if they had waited another week to do it, it would have been a tribe swap at 12, and then they'd probably merge at 10. So it just wouldn't make very much sense to do it that way.
Yeah, so 13 people, so it's split into 2 groups with 6 and 6, and then it was 1. Julia was on the red, and then she was the odd girl out, having to go back and live alone. So the red was just Julia. Blue has Sydney and Jason from Brawn, Debbie and Neal from Brain, and Nick and Michelle from Beauty. And then the other tribe is the yellow tribe, which has Scot, who is a single Brawn dude, Aubry and Peter and Joe, which is 3 brains, and then Anna and Ty, which is 2 beauty. And then the twist was that, like we were saying, as this was an option last week, it was a possibility besides the Outcats twist that could happen, and we were correct. So the Julia doesn't do the immunity challenge or anything, so she doesn't have a chance of getting voted out. So she goes, and now she'll join the yellow tribe next week.
Personally, I didn't like the tribe swap just because I feel like it screwed so many people over, and it gave people power who shouldn't really have power. Like, the 2 Brawn people ended up getting power just because the brains and the beauty both wanted them on their team, and it's like, I'm so sick of the Brawn tribe. Like,
Yeah, literally, the Brawn just went from 0 to 100 or 100 real quick. All 3 of them. I like Sydney, but then Jason and Scot, like they're in power positions right now.
I was really hoping that following the tribe swap, they'd get voted off for like their arrogance or their just general bad attitude. But once Scott got away from Jason, he seemed like an okay guy.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see more. That that doesn't redeem him yet, so we can talk about that when we go more in depth. But yeah, which tribe do you think is the more OP one? I was thinking that the blue tribe of the 2-2-2 split is going to continue winning.
I think that part of the thing about having the 2-2-2 split is that you do get like types of people for every like leg of the challenge. Like the yellow tribe, they had to send Aubry out swimming, and Aubry isn't that good of a swimmer. So it's like, yeah.
So you think the blue one also is
Yeah.
the more like well-rounded, more suited tribe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think the tribe swaps, like the 2 groups, it was pretty equal. It was really interesting and how they fell through like that.
Yeah, we were talking about how even though they like all appear to have picked from the same like tray of buffs, and it seems like almost too perfect as far as like how they got switched up.
Yeah, I feel like it must be rigged in some way, to keep it like the gender equal or close to equal, the tribes equal or close to equal, like of which color, like who came from Brawn, who came from Brain, who came from Beauty and stuff.
I
And
feel
yeah.
like they kind of didn't want a repeat of Survivor All-Stars, where like the tribe stayed the same except for one person, because then that person is obviously screwed. But at the same time, that kind of adds more intrigue to the show. So I think that Beauty was the most screwed over by this tribe swap, just because they were a powerhouse before, and they all were pretty solid together. And then having Julia go away into the Brawn tribe and not having her as a number, I feel like hurt them a lot, because otherwise Beauty would have had the majority on whichever tribe they were on, because they would have had 3 and 2 or 4 and 1 or like 5.
Yeah, no, I feel like the two groups that could have picked the odd one out buff would be either Beauty or Brain, since they have the most people, and then Beauty picked the short end of the stick and Julia gets sent all alone. So I guess we can talk about that. So Julia did so well on her own, I feel like. She finally mentioned like that she is a teenager. I don't think she's ever mentioned that on like the show before.
Yeah.
Or she may not have even told her tribe mates yet. So it's crazy. And like I feel like being sent out there, you're missing out on so much of the bonding. So it'll be interesting. So she'll take Anna's spot.
I think part of it is also being missing. Like, people were playing with her in mind, but she never even knew it. Like, when she comes to the Yellow Tribe next week, she's probably not going to know that they voted Anna out specifically because she was the one who was sent to the Brawn Tribe. Personally, I have a lot of respect for Julia, just because, like, Rachel's 18, I'm turning 18 in less than a month, and I don't think either of us could have done that.
Yeah, I think Julia is such a good role model. Like we were saying, how Alicia is. Like, once, I guess, viewers and people that aren't so hardcore Survivor, like, know her age and stuff and what she's been going through, if Julia makes it to the end, she can say a lot of stuff saying how I was, missed out on the bonding. I was sent to live alone and I'm only 18 and, I had to make fire and get water and do all that stuff alone, and then being able to make it that far in the game when you did miss out on that prime time bonding, that's a feat to accomplish.
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting just because the tribe dynamics, I feel like, kind of revolved around the fact that Julia was the one missing, because obviously the Yellow Tribe the Brains didn't want the Beauties to gain a majority, and on the Blue Tribe, no one wanted the Beauties to gain a majority, just because it just would not end up well for anyone.
Yeah, definitely we can mention that again because I had some talking points about that. So we can do that at like the tribal because that definitely influenced tribal council a lot. So I guess going and we can talk about the blue tribe more in depth that has Sydney, Jason, Debbie, Neal, Nick, and Michelle. And Sydney and Debbie. Sydney was like, I like Debbie because she is a motherly figure. And dang, Sydney went to the Ivy League. So if she ever mentioned it, which I don't think she would because she wants to keep like her smartness on the DL, but she could totally bond with all the brain people because Neal went to like Cornell, Liz went to or MIT, Aubry went to Brown. So all those Ivy Leaguers can, bond over their Ivy Leagueness.
Yeah, I feel like it showed really well. I think one of Debbie's strengths as a player, and that's being able to like read other people and see past, I think, their designations, because she saw past the fact that Sydney was just buff and into the fact that you need discipline and you need like some level of mental fortitude to be able to do something like that.
No, I know. When Debbie had her confessional saying, I'm the mastermind, I'm bringing all these people together, I was like, yes, Debbie. Debbie was hooking up with the Brawn people, and Jason and Sydney both seem to, connect with her and really like her. So it should be interesting. And then Beauty and Brain both want bronze. So I don't know. This episode, I felt like Sydney and Jason were more leaning towards Neal and Debbie, but I think after the Anna vote out, it might be the Brains under the fire next week because now Brains does have the most amount of people on the island.
Yeah, and they're gonna want to keep the Brains from getting majority for the merge, because
Exactly.
if they don't vote out any Brains by the merge, then the Brains will have a 5-person majority. And that's never a good thing, just because it's a game of numbers and you really need to be careful of that.
Yeah, so if next week, Debbie or Sydney and Jason are thinking and they hopefully, will try to vote out Debbie or Neal to try to keep the numbers even. So we'll see, I guess, about that.
So, immunity challenge. It was another 3-part immunity challenge, and I personally am not really a fan of this season's immunity challenges just because they seem to be very repetitive. They go out to the water, they get something, they bring the something back to land, they race, they go do a puzzle. And it
True.
seems very like formulaic, I guess would be the word. And I don't know, it's just not as interesting. Just how, like, last season when they were doing all the endurance challenges where they were just standing on posts for several hours, it wasn't that interesting.
Yeah, I feel like they're sort of repeating the same kinds of things like you were saying. You do get something, come back, do a puzzle, and then you're done. It's just repeating that same layout and creating a different challenge. But yeah, I don't know. It went by really quick. That fish puzzle looked really hard. I was trying to figure out the pattern. It was like, how do you tell which ones go on the bottom and which ones go on the top? But then, you got to find the pattern. And Debbie and Neal got it so fast. Like,
I feel like that's one of those puzzles where as soon as you get the first piece, it becomes really, really easy.
yeah, I guess like figuring out the pattern and then, figuring out which fish go onto the bottom and which ones go onto the top, then it like makes sense. But like the puzzle that it gets easier once you get in the piece is like the one where you like have to do the turny tables and stick it in. This one
Yeah.
seems like if you can like finish the whole puzzle, but then you don't know if you screwed up until the last piece. Then you have to like take everything out of the box.
Yeah, so they did really well, the Blue Tribe did, and I think part of that was the fact that they had that even mix of people. That could just be me.
Yeah, definitely that 2-2-2. So Nick and Jason went out. Jason's Brawn. Nick is really tall and muscly. But what was so interesting, we saw Scot. He like swam out there and then untied both fish before Nick and Jason untied their 2 fish. So Scot single-handedly like got them that lead at the beginning.
Too bad they wasted that lead because, like we said, the Blue Tribe won. And I wouldn't say that it was a blow-away victory, but it was not the narrowest of margins.
Yeah, because some of them were really close, in the past of this season. But this one, Anna and Peter sort of lagged on that puzzle, and then they just couldn't get the pattern as quick as Debbie and Neal. So they were rocking it.
And the yellow team got sent to tribal council, and we said that we were going to talk more about their tribe dynamics and stuff. So, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, like we said at the beginning, Anna basically is screwed over by this tribe swap because she and the other girls, and even on Beauty, they had such a good thing going, and then because of this, she gets voted out. So that's a bummer. But
It
Scot.
had the potential to go all the way too, because we all picked who we thought would win from each tribe for our preseason guessy thing when we made our fantasy teams, and I think that all 3 of us picked Anna. So
Were we right about who was first off Beauty? Does that
we all picked Anna to win from Beauty.
okay?
So none of us were right.
Yeah, I mean, this episode we saw Scot and Ty having a bromance. Good for them, but then I mean, it's good. I like to see it, but then it's bad because I don't want to see Ty just become like another piece for Scot and Jason. That is literally what he's going to become. Scot and Jason are going to rule over Ty like they ruled over Alicia or something. You know, just I don't want them to be like so manipulative of Ty. I want Ty to do his own thing and not be
I
under
feel
their
like
crazy.
that kind of brings up the argument about whether or not Ty did the right thing by playing his immunity idol. And I go
Yes.
back and forth on this about whether or not he was justified in not playing it. Because, like, personally, if I were him, I would play the idol. I know a lot of people are like, oh, but it's before even the merge. You want to have that sort of security. You want to have like the knowledge that you can save yourself later. But Ty stopped himself from getting the majority. Like if he had voted off Peter, and then it would be him and Anna and Julia, and then they'd also have Scot on their side, and they could pick off the two brains, and then Beauty would be able to go into the merge with a majority, which would mean Ty would be guaranteed at least the top 5 if no one flipped.
That's exactly what I was thinking. You know, we'll definitely see if this is a good move or not for Ty, but I like for Scot, you know, it's a good move for Scot. Scot really is like the MVP getting Ty not to play the idol. So now Scot knows where 2 idols are, so he could potentially, you know, be the creator of a super idol later in the merge or another tribe swap or something. So, you know, oh man, it's really good for Scot, which is sucky for us because we both want Scot out to hurt the computer team for the prophecy points. But Ty not playing the idol, like Alyssa was saying, they could have 3 beauties. If Julia came back, they vote out Peter, so it'd be 3 beauties, Pete or Scot, and then 2 brains. So then they would have the majority. Either way, for Scot going, he doesn't care if a brain goes out, a beauty goes out, because he's going to be at the bottom of both of those packs. So I guess it doesn't really matter for him. But him and like now he and Ty are going to be close because he wants to keep Ty around. So next time either Julia goes or if the brains flip on each other, which
I think
no,
that all
man.
depends on how Julia plays it, because, like, she seems nice enough. Like, doesn't seem particularly threatening. And I mean that in a good way in this sense, just because as the merge is drawing closer and closer, people are thinking more and more about who's going to be a physical threat and stuff after the merge, because once you get to those individual immunity challenges, it's, like, crazy because you don't want someone to be like Joe who just wins and wins and wins and wins and wins and is never subjected to like having to go into tribal council unsafe until like day 30 or something crazy like that.
Yeah, I feel like they're going to underestimate Julia's strength, you know, how Julia can play the game, because what their main reasoning for voting out Anna was because she is able to like talk to a lot of people and manipulate people. So, and they wanted Ty because he's a provider at camp. So Ty voted out his own beauty ally and kept the idol for himself.
So I guess we're gonna have to see in coming weeks whether or not that's a good thing for him. I feel like what happens next is kind of a very nebulous area because there are so many different factors that can go into play here. And we also forgot to say our predictions for who's gonna win before we started this podcast. So we've been trying to like say who we think is gonna get voted off next week before we start the podcast, just because more often than not we ended up just like parroting what each other said,
Yeah.
which is like boring and stuff. So
I can talk about, I just wanted to like talk about, you know, we sort of mentioned it earlier, but what happens now that a beauty gets voted out? I think this also plays into who I'm saying is going to go home next week, because beauty goes now. I think Brain will be in the hot seat for, you know, it's sort of flipped. If Brain went home, if Peter went home this time, and then next time I really feel like, at least on the other tribe, Michelle would be in the hot seat, or Nick would be in the hot seat to get voted out. So I think Michelle would have gone home if the beauties won this vote out and then Peter went home. But since Peter did not go home and now there are 5 brains, I think a brain will go home. I'm going to say that this, what color are we? This yellow tribe is going to go back to tribal. And I feel like, the brains are going to combust against Peter. Aubry and Joe have both said they dislike Peter. And so I think Peter's going to go home. Whether this is the right time, it may or may not be, because then if Peter goes, Brain would not have the numbers on that side. So, they might want to keep Peter around for more numbers and vote out a beauty or Scot. So then they definitely have the majority. But maybe Peter will just get so annoying that they have to vote him out.
I feel like Brains having the majority would be like the reason why they would keep Peter around, just because if you have the majority, it's like those people who are like, going to tribal council is a blessing in disguise. Like, I feel like it's that kind of mentality for the yellow tribe, where like they might think that they wouldn't ever think that getting rid of Peter was a good thing, just because they need him up until the merge, and once they get numbers in the merge, they can do it. But I'm going to agree that the yellow tribe is going to go home, but I'm going to say that they're going to vote off Scot because they see him as a physical threat, and with the merge coming up, they don't want physical threats.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
So, a brief review of our prophecy points now that we've made our predictions for next week. This week, the computer team gained 0 points.
Yeet, yeet. We want that to happen because the computer team is dominating.
Just a little note. The computer team still has all 6 of its players left, and me and Rachel each only have 3 players left on our team, which kind of sucks because players are how you get points, and you can't get points if you don't have any players. Anyways, Rachel gained 2 points this week for Neal finding the hidden immunity idol, so she now has a total of 29.5 points. And I won big this week. I'm really excited because I actually got points. So I got 8 points this week, 5 for Aubry naming the episode of The Devils We Know, and 3 for Anna's placement points because she got voted out. So now my total is 30 points, and that puts us in a slightly closer margin than before, because the span from highest to lowest is now only 8.5 points, which isn't that bad, but I have a feeling that that margin's going to get a lot wider after the merge.
Yeah, if all of her people make the merge, that is like too many points. They need to not make the merge.
Yeah. So if you guys could all like pray for us, cross fingers, anything, so that the computer team begins to lose, because we really need that in our lives.
No, alas, it is what it is. Yeah, so this was a meh episode, like we said. Anna was royally screwed over by the tribe swap, so maybe we'll see Anna play again in the future, but I don't know. She didn't really make that much of an impact, if you know what I mean, on the game. Like, Caleb would definitely be invited back. I don't know about Anna. I feel like someone later in this game who gets voted out would be, like, more memorable than her.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I'm excited to see what next week comes, just because, like I said, I think that this episode was kind of set up for next week's episode and what might happen. So
yeah, it'll be good. I like when they have reward challenges and then immunity challenges, because I like seeing them compete in these games and stuff. So
I think introducing reward challenges also brings more strategy about like who you have to sit out and stuff.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. We'll see you guys next week. We hope to get back to our normal time on Fridays. There was some technical difficulties yet again that resulted in us not being able to podcast yesterday. But we're still super excited to be able to do this and to be able to talk about our favorite show on Earth. So,
yay! Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you guys in less than a week.
Yay! Mwah.